watching the very popular president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, play mental jujitsu with low IQ Donald Trump is a sight to behold. Now, as Donald Trump is saying, April 2nd is going to be Liberation Day, where there's going to be tariffs on everything imaginable, and he goes, things are going to be great. And of course, he's imposing the 25% auto tariffs throughout the world, which is going to hit Mexico and Canada particularly hard. This was from earlier this week, a press conference that Claudia Sheinbaum held, where she said, look, built into the very fabric of Mexico's constitution is the concept of not tariffing people, not tariffing other nations, because it has disastrous effects. But she says, without saying so many words, look, Donald Trump's a weak, pathetic loser, and we know he's backed down before, so why don't we just see what happens on April 2nd, because he tends to back down when he sees the stock market crash. Watch her play this clip.
We do not agree with imposing economic sanctions on countries. That is a principle of Mexican foreign policy. It is not only of the government I represent, but in general, and besides, that's what the Constitution establishes, and that's important. Because it doesn't affect a government or a person, but an entire people. In the face of what might happen on the 2nd of April, well, we already have different plans that we have been announcing. So let's hope, particularly, that by April 2nd, everything goes well for the benefit of our country and the United States.
And then as part of her other press conference, she seemed to reiterate this message where she's basically calling Donald Trump an idiot and a weak, pathetic coward without using so many words. And she's being diplomatic, and she's just like, look, all right, we've been through this cycle before. He huffs and he puffs and he says he's going to blow your house down, but we'll be prepared. We've got the remedies on April 2nd or April 3rd if he does indeed do his Liberation Day plan and impose these tariffs. But we've seen what happened before, so we'll see what happens. Here, play this clip.
If you remember, April 2nd is the day President Trump announced he would unveil the tariff system he will propose to the world. Yesterday, he moved forward and talked about the automotive industry. Then it says the 25% tariff will apply to imported passenger vehicles and light trucks, as well as key car parts, engines, transmissions, drivetrain parts, and electrical components. This is for everyone. They say automobile importers under the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement will be given the opportunity to certify their American content so that the 25% tariff applies only to the value of their non-American content. It would come into effect on the 3rd of April.
We have held 6 meetings with the Secretary of Commerce and the head of USTR to ensure that if we are going to a system of such high tariffs, what we need to seek is a preferential treatment for Mexico so that we have conditions to protect our jobs.
As I believe they are the only country that has this level of communication with the government of the United. The first thing that the people of Mexico need to know is that we will always protect that
It's Mexico, our responsibility.
defend the jobs generated in Mexico, the existing jobs, and also Mexican companies. I have requested that we can meet with the global executives of the automotive industries to see the scope and how do we strengthen this integration we have with the United States. We will work in that direction, and on April 3rd we will be providing a comprehensive response regarding what Mexico's stance will be in this new situation. We will always strive
the best for Mexico.
This is from Claudia Sheinbaum's press conference as well. Play this clip.
In this talk, what we are seeking is the best possible agreement so it does not affect, above all, employment in our country. So that's the dialogue we are in. On April 2nd, the United States announces new tariffs to the whole world, which is very important. It is a policy decided by the government of the United States. And what we have stated is that we are going to wait because now we have tariffs on steel and aluminum. What was announced about from the automotive industry What we agreed is that everything within the USMCA should not have tariffs, but outside the USMCA should have tariffs. So we are working on a comprehensive response for strengthening the national economy, and also we have to respond to a unilateral situation. We are still in the process of talks with the United States, seeking, ensure that jobs are maintained in Mexico, that investment continues in our country, and that it doesn't affect the United States itself, nor Canada, nor Mexico.
And I think it's also worth highlighting the contrast between her and like a Trump. I think there's a reason why she has an 85% approval rate in Mexico. I think the people in Mexico see how she's checkmating Donald Trump and outmaneuvering him, and kind of making him look awful without really even trying all that hard. But also here she's talking about things that matter to the Mexican people: education, low unemployment. Mexico has very low unemployment. Most people are working in Mexico right now. But here, this is what she devotes her press conference to: promoting education. Could you imagine that? If you had someone like Trump, like say they want to help education, versus have Elon Musk and Doge destroy education. Play this clip.
We want any young person who wants to study at the university to be able to do so. And for young people graduating from secondary school, not to have to worry about where they will study high school, but rather have a high school nearby that can provide the education they need. One of the most important projects is strengthening high school education. But also what we want is to expand university enrollment. There should be many more high schools or upper secondary education options than there currently are. There are 4 modalities. The school is ours that today joins this level, expanding those that already exist, high schools with space, land, and that we are going to expand secondary schools that no longer have an afternoon shift, and that now in the afternoon shift can be high schools and 4 new schools. So this program we are presenting now to strengthen the high schools, the technical high schools, the baccalaureate quota society, has to do with that, with addressing the causes, prevent a young person from thinking that joining a criminal group is an option. The only thing that is an option of death, not a life option. That is addressing the causes, and it is just as important as everything else.
As I'm sure you're aware, from the morning to the evening, I'm recording video after video, hosting podcast after podcast, and having all of that coffee that you probably see me drink was causing me those coffee jitters, and I needed a change in my routine. So that's why I started trying mud water. It's refreshing. It's incredible. And it was just the right touch as we head into spring. It's right around the corner, spring, and it's the perfect time to refresh your routine as I refreshed my routine. Shake off those winter blues. And here's an easy change you can make. Ditch the endless cups of coffee for something better. Try mud water, MUDWTR. If you're looking to cut out those coffee jitters or avoid the afternoon slump, mud water is the perfect nourishing drink to help you power through it. It ain't your average cup of joe with a blend of cacao, chai, turmeric, and adaptogenic mushrooms. It helps you feel more focused without the crash. It's smooth, steady, and makes you feel better. Smooth and steady. I hope that's what you feel about my reporting here on the MeidasTouch podcast. Ready to make the switch to a cleaner energy? Head to mudwater.com, MUDWTR.com, and grab your starter kit today. Right now, our listeners get an exclusive deal, up to 43% off your entire order, plus free shipping and a free rechargeable frother when you use the code MEIDAS, MEIDAS. That's right, up to 43% off with the code MEIDAS at MUDWTR.com. After your purchase, they'll ask you how you found them. Please show your support for MeidasTouch and let them know we sent you. Keep your energy natural and refreshing all year long with mud water, because life's too short for anything less than clean, delicious energy. That's MUDWTR.com and use the code MEIDAS. Now, one of, I think, the great moves that Claudia Sheinbaum did, and it's kind of funny and trolly, but it's part of her, I think, mental jujitsu that she does with the low IQ Trump regime morons who form Trump's cabinet, is she's done psychological profiles on these low IQ individuals like Trump and J.D. Vance and Kristi Noem. Although, let's be fair, J.D. Vance is smart. He just plays stupid. So more like Pete Hegseth, Mike Waltz. Vance is evil smart, pretending to be stupid. I'll clarify that right there. But behaves like an idiot. So Kristi Noem, right? Trump's Homeland Security Secretary. What does she love to do? Cosplay. Dresses up in different outfits and then goes to like different settings. So Claudia Sheinbaum knows this about Kristi Noem. So watch this. She invites Noem to Mexico and then kind of rolls it out in a way to make Kristi Noem feel like super tough. And then she helps Kristi Noem film one of these like G.I. Joe or G.I. Jane, like Rambo videos so that, she could say, look how good I made you. But Claudia Sheinbaum knows what she's doing here. We welcomed U.S. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to the National Palace. We had a fruitful meeting with her, benefiting both Mexico and the United States. Our countries maintain a good relationship within a framework of respect for each other's sovereignty. You notice that Sheinbaum goes, we're setting the framework. You are in my framework, Noem and Trump, a framework of sovereignty. So if you want to be in that framework of sovereignty, we're happy to chat. If not, get the hell out of here. So then, precisely what we thought was going to happen, Kristi Noem then posts her G.I. Jane or Rambo style video. Secretary Noem met with Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum and thanked her for deploying the National Guard troops to the border and accepting deportation flights. Secretary Noem made it clear there is more work to be done to stop the flow of drugs and illegal aliens into the United States. And then Noem did the following video. I'll share with you the video in a moment. But just remember that there were actually less troops at the border than were previously given under former President Biden. But Claudia Sheinbaum made it feel like a deal. I'll give you 10,000 troops. And there was previously 15,000 troops. So it was like 5,000 troops less. So when they raised the troops, it's just to levels that have already existed when they cut these deals with former President Biden. Anyway, here's the video, the G.I. Jane video that Kristi Noem then cut. Here, play this clip. Now, the backdrop of all of this also is on Saturday. Donald Trump was playing golf with the president of Finland. And I think Donald Trump was trying to show off to the president of Finland as Trump tries to attack and threaten EU. Look what I can do. You want me to make some news, President of Finland? Look what I'm going to do. Then he calls NBC News Kristen Welker. I don't think this was a scheduled interview per se. And so Trump just starts talking, and he starts talking about April 2nd, Liberation Day. And Donald Trump says, I couldn't care less if foreign automakers are hurt, if this makes the prices go up. I couldn't care less. I hope they raise the prices on automobiles, is what he says. And he goes, I don't give a crap if they raise the prices. Good. So we're going to see what happens on April 2nd and April 3rd. Now, Claudia Sheinbaum is focused on, look, I think Trump's going to back down. He's backed down before we've gone through this cycle. But we'll see if Trump ultimately folds, and Trump tends to fold as the markets keep on crashing. And I think that, Sheinbaum's like, all right, here we go again, another cycle. The markets are going to crash. And really what she has in her kind of back pocket, if you will, is China, right? Ultimately, I think what she's able to do is move Mexico closer to BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and others. And if ultimately Trump goes ahead with these tariffs. I mean, some say, but Ben, look what Claudia Sheinbaum looks like. What she's doing is Is she appeasing Donald Trump? Look, I think she's been tough where she needs to be super tough. And then she kind of, in her own way, I call it like mental jujitsu, but I think she knows kind of how to play Donald Trump. You could tell me what you think about it. But I want to give a shout out also to me, to all the Maple Mighty out there, the Midas Maple Midas. Because, look, Canada has been, I think just so super strong on all of this. I mean, I think, even more so than Mexico. I mean, my own view, what Canada's been doing, what Prime Minister Carney's doing, I think how Trudeau's handled it. I've had on our program Charlie Angus on repeatedly. I think Canada deserves all the credit of showing what real international resistance looks like, standing up to the Trump regime and really fighting back and having Donald Trump scared. Let me just share with you. At the end of last week, I interviewed Charlie Angus, and here's what he had to say to me. Play this clip.
But I think there's something deeper, Ben, that Canadians are really focusing on right now, which is watching our nearest neighbor slip into totalitarianism. When we see people being pulled off the streets, when we see people at universities being grabbed, detained, rendered, and kidnapped, and when we see Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security boss, doing this really disgusting video in front of half-naked men in an overcrowded El Salvadorian prison cell, we're looking at a nation that we don't understand anymore. And we don't want to be like that nation. And we're thinking, if we go down the road with this regime, we're talking about the disappearance of the rule of law. And that's deeply offensive to us. It's deeply offensive to our friends in Europe. It's deeply offensive to our friends in Australia and Japan and elsewhere. So we're now, as the Prime Minister said, we're having to look elsewhere for the kind of alliances and agreements and understandings that we used to have with our nearest neighbor. If our nearest neighbor doesn't respect the rule of law for its citizens, how's it going to respect the rule of international law? And it certainly doesn't respect us as Canada. So we have no choice. We have to make decisions, and we're going to make decisions that benefit our region and our people first.
And here's what Angus told me as well. Let's play it.
I think in Canada, the conversation for some time has been, how do we share information with an unstable supposed ally who's now our enemy? Who, I mean, what are they on some kind of group chat talking about international secrecy? We've seen with Mr. Pete Hegseth and his crowd. You think anybody's going to be sharing that kind of information when there's such a disregard for it? So what it's doing is it's making America weaker, and it's making America more vulnerable. And we're having to really make serious decisions. Like on the F-35, there's a huge conversation going on in Canada right now. We understand we have to retool our defense system because now suddenly we have a hostile neighbor. And are we going to buy the massively expensive F-35 from American procurement when we don't know whether or not written into the codes will be stuff that Donald Trump or the United States can override to undermine our defenses? So now we have American contractors coming to Canada and saying, listen, honest to God, we will work with you. We'll do it outside of the United States to keep your contracts. Whereas we're saying, well, we'll do it domestically or we'll do it in Europe. And the United States procurement machine is a huge economic driver, but we just can't trust them right now because we can't trust a neighbor who's threatening our sovereignty.
And finally, Angus told me this.
Well, Donald, in 3 months, you have turned your nation into a spectacle of disgrace. Your abuse of the rule of law, your abuse of your citizens, your kidnapping and detentions. We are watching your treatment of your neighbors, the fact that you think that Canada is the nastiest country you've ever dealt with when you kiss up to Vladimir Putin, a war criminal, and you hang out with Bibi Netanyahu, who's under indictment, and you hang out with North Korea, and you think Canada is your nastiest neighbor. Donald, what you're doing is a grift on the American people and on the long tradition of American democracy. And we don't trust you, and we know we can't trust you, So we are going to do what we have to do. My only concern, Donald, is how are you going to explain it to the American people when their car prices go up, when they can't sell their products, when nobody is going to come and visit in Florida, Arizona, Nevada, places that people travel to, even New York. We love New York. We're not going there. Donald, how are you going to explain the collapse of these important economic markers in your country just over ideology and just over your idiocy? That's something you need to explain to your people, Donald. As for Canada, we're talking amongst ourselves, and we are going to build another future, and it ain't going to be with you.
Well, there you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Now hit subscribe. Help us get to 5 million subscribers.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.